Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Creator Etiquette. We are here live from Cannes Lions, and I'm at Creator Beach recording with a very special guest, the SVP and GM of Adobe Express at Adobe. And I am so excited to welcome him to the podcast. Govind, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Of course. So the whole thesis of Creator Etiquette is talking about ways to empower creators and brands to work together and develop a creator's career long term. I'm sure we'll talk about a whole journey when it comes to executive advice and your career ladder, but also what that looks like for a creator today is really what I want to dive deep into. And of course, maybe some little nuggets of wisdom when it comes to Adobe Express.
I'll try.
Okay, amazing. So when it comes to your career at Adobe, I mean, you've bounced around internally, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious what was the strategic move for you to do that over time?
Yeah, I think the thing that's kept me here at Adobe, if I were to think about it strategically, is that I've always sort of looked for opportunities to take on new challenges. I'm never satisfied with just continuing with the status quo. I've always sort of picked up challenges that were unique, that sort of had the odds stacked against them. Even internally, people were like, I'm not sure if that's going to be a successful project. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. Let's pull in the right people, get the right energy and the right focus built around it, and let's see how we go. And that's sort of been one of the hallmarks of what I've held true to as I've stayed at Adobe, and has in many ways helped me get to where I am today.
For sure. And something that we were briefly chatting about before was just the idea that you can build a long-term career at one company, but what happens when that is scaled down to an individual creator potentially working at their own company for, 10, 20 years if they ever grew it, scale it, sell it, that's a different discussion. But if somebody's a solopreneur, how would you say they should be reinvigorated with a passion to stay and consistently do more and expand what they're doing as an individual?
I think a lot of it starts with perseverance and self-belief. In more ways than one, there will always be ups and downs in almost anyone's career, regardless of whether you're a solopreneur, a creator, or you're a part of a large corporation as I am. It's never going to be smooth sailing. So what you need to have is obviously self-belief. You need to make sure that you believe in yourself and you know that you can actually do what you think you can do or need to do to be successful. But then the other part is just persevering through, ups and downs and not letting them take you off your course. And the third thing I would say, actually, there's a third one too, is the willingness to pivot, the willingness to change direction as needed. Yes, you obviously want to persevere, but you don't do that to a fault where you're like, okay, I see all the signals that my current direction is not what it needs to be, but you refuse to acknowledge them or act on them. And that's also an area where I would encourage people to be willing to pivot. Give it a shot, try new ideas. You never know what works.
It's true. And pivoting is a huge part of the creator economy. Even products pivot every day.
Absolutely.
I've seen it because I've been a beta tester for many years now with a bunch of the different products in the Adobe suite. But I love how anytime something big changes or they've noticed an uptick in podcasts and how AI is helping podcast editing or how generative AI is helping creators, edit at scale or resize at scale or cross-post at scale. It's been really incredible to watch that development. So I'm curious, where would you suggest creators and or people working at brands who are working with creators learn more about accepting that pivoting and persevering? Because a lot of people can say, yes, just pivot. But saying it and doing it are two different things, and persevering through it is also sometimes a challenge. So what kind of mindset advice would you give to them, and where did maybe you learn some advice?
Yeah, I think a lot of it starts with being open-minded, right? And being curious. Because what happens quite often is you shut down new ideas because you're not necessarily, you're too wedded to your current path. And yes, you should be wedded enough to make sure that you give it the best possible chance for it to succeed. But if you're not open-minded to other perspectives or other ideas, you may lose a pivot or miss a pivot that would actually translate to a much bigger opportunity.
Right.
So having that sort of open-mindedness and being curious, so to speak, to look around the corner and look for opportunities that may be even bigger than the opportunity that you're persevering through is the mindset that I would encourage everyone, regardless of whether they are in a large corporation or in a small, solopreneur-like business. I would encourage them to absolutely adopt.
I love that one. So Adobe's Creator Toolkit report just came out. I would love to talk about it. Can we do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So you guys said that about 86% of global creators are using generative AI. That's a big number.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of give us your best creator etiquette when it comes to using generative AI, and also maybe mention the benefits of using a model like Firefly as it pertains to original art and IP?
Yeah, so from an etiquette point of view, I would say generative AI, in more ways than one, helps creators create more content, but it does not in any way, shape, or form absolve them of the responsibility of bringing their own voice and their own taste to the content.
Yeah.
Right? Generative AI is a path to creating content at scale, creating more volume of content. But if you want to stand out, you need to make it distinctive to your voice, to your taste. And if you don't do that, you're actually missing out on a big opportunity.
Right.
So from an etiquette point of view, what I would encourage everyone to do is, yes, use generative AI wherever possible, but don't lose sight of how you can still stand out with generative AI. Use generative AI to give yourself space, so to speak, to do more to bring your human judgment into the creative process, to bring your own taste into the creative process, to bring your own voice to the creative process. So that's one that I would truly encourage everyone to embrace to the extent possible.
What's the most unique use case of that you've experienced or seen?
Well, literally any content. Let's just take a social media post for that matter, right? You can literally use generative AI now to create an Instagram post or an Instagram reel from start to finish. Like, you don't need to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
But then if you just post that, it's going to look very similar to what others have created.
Right.
So how do you bring your own voice to it? Like, that's the part that you should spend time on, and make sure that you do that and don't lose sight of the fact that if you don't do that, essentially, your content is going to just land in the sea of sameness that no one's going to pay attention to.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, when I was hosting my pre-can luncheon with sponsored by Adobe, I used Firefly to generate a poster board that looked like a watercolor painting because, I'm not a watercolor artist over here. I wanted it to look pretty. So I got some inspo pictures of south of France. I said, do image of the croissant really beautifully if you can. Use a watercolor format. I want it. That gave me vertical. I'm like, no. I need it in a 24 by 36 wide horizontal poster board. And then I'm like, okay, now add the Adobe logo in and add a perfect gradient behind. And then also go in and add my logo, but don't change anything on the logo. Keep the logo as is. And I think it was a really unique experience because I am traditionally trained as a designer. And so I actually have an urge to resist when it comes to prompt editing rather than doing it myself. But I realize it's just another creative muscle to learn.
It absolutely is. I mean, that's a great example where you start off by saying that you're not a watercolor painter, right? And you actually used generative AI to leverage the capabilities of the model to give you a starting point that you couldn't have come up with on your own. And then you made it your own.
Yes.
Right? By giving it the prompts, by essentially guiding it to get to where you wanted to get to. So you still made it your own, but you started with something that you probably didn't have access to, or you couldn't have had access to had you not had generative AI at your fingertips.
Yeah.
So in more ways than one, I would say that is an amazingly unique and valuable use case for how generative AI can help you in your creative process.
Totally. And of that 86% that we're talking about that is using AI to, fuel their business, 76% of those people said that they use it to help grow their business. So I wanted to kind of talk about ways that using AI or using content in general on social can help grow a content business. Obviously, we know creators are here to say we are literally here recording at Creator Beach at Cannes Lions. But when we're talking about growing a business, that's so many different elements. Content is just one piece of that. And it's obvious. All you have to do is use a great tool in the Adobe suite to pump it out. But what else are creators missing when it comes to growing a business?
Yeah, I think it starts with ensuring that you build a brand around yourself. If you're trying to reach an audience, your community, you want to bring that consistency, so to speak, of your brand to your audience. And quite often what I see is that with AI in particular, there are creators who are creating a ton of content, but are not necessarily taking the time to ensure that there is consistency as it relates to their voice, their values, their tone, and things that actually help them connect better with their audience, right? Because the audience that you're serving is looking for that predictability, so to speak, that consistency from you. And if you don't necessarily work on that, you're losing out on a really big opportunity. So what we're in that phase now where content creation is democratized. Everyone can create content at a pace that was unfathomable a few years back. But then some of these basic elements of being true to your brand, of being true to your voice, of taking the time to bring human judgment into the process, human values into the process of creating your creative output is being forgotten along the way. And that is really something that I think we should not lose sight of.
And when you say it's not something we should lose sight of, it also sounds like maybe it's like, people are really not reading the room. And I kind of believe there's a little bit of a gap between brands and creators when it comes to using AI and not losing sight of their originality. So I'm just kind of curious now, because you're talking about that discernment level of using AI. And there's a gap right now between brands knowing when creators are using it and creators knowing when brands are using it. I think both just assume we're using it all together. My question is, what can both brands and creators do to fill that gap and collaborate better to meet each other where we're at? Because we are all using it. I'm going to share a use case, if I may, which is using Acrobat and PDF Spaces. So whenever, and I've talked about this on stages and I've worked with you guys a bunch on this concept, because to avoid that friction that creators and brands experience when it comes to sending a brief, I'm like, why don't we just use Acrobat? The creator can train Acrobat's model on their own unique assistant that helps them with their content and their writing if they want to, based on real documents that are theirs, writing styles, examples. And then from there, for a brand deal potentially, or for a podcast episode even, you could go in, you could put everything you need in there, from the brief on the brand side, the contract if you really wanted to, because it's nice and secure there. And then even after that, you can leave comments with each other. You could get on a call. You can ask the AI about it. And I'm like, this is such a brilliant tool. Why is everybody not using this? So what do you believe the future of brand creator collaborations is?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a really incredible capability that we have launched fairly recently around PDF Spaces, which essentially is tailor-made for the kind of use case that you just described. Right? Imagine being able to collect a large set of documents, regardless of what format they might be, into this one space that is shared across everyone that you want it to be shared with, where you, as you said, you have the ability to insert comments, to essentially create a curated sort of document of what, or to describe what the space is about, to generate podcasts that essentially make it easy for you to consume content.
Yeah.
Right? But we are now taking that a step further, a few steps further, to essentially dramatically simplify the consumption. So PDF Spaces, everything that you described is more around consumption, but translating that consumption process into creation.
Yeah.
And the creation can be, as I said, podcasts, it can be a presentation, it can be a flyer, it can be a poster, it can be an invoice, it can be a contract. It can be almost anything that makes sense from that collection of documents.
Yeah.
And I view that as a future for all kinds of collaboration. I mean, sounds like you've done that for what you're, focused on, which is amazing to hear. But I see no reason why everyone wouldn't use it, be it a student or an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a large enterprise. There are use cases where this can be incredibly valuable. And I think your you're at the bleeding edge of it, and I'm glad to see that you're already benefiting from it.
Yeah, and I think something that's been really exciting is all those product integrations, which, it's the most frustrating thing when you have a piece of work and then you have to jump somewhere else and then you kind of get distracted by whatever's in your email inbox, and then you start looking through your emails and you're like, oh crap, I was supposed to be looking for that brief to get the concept back to my agent to get to the team, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, but I was literally just doing that in this app. So I've really enjoyed actually learning about the integrations, and I'm excited to see how they keep developing. And on the note of development, can we talk about agentic systems for creative workflows? Because that's something you guys also reported in this toolkit report, that creators are looking to learn how or to build a system of sorts that knows their creative voice, that knows their creative brand, and then use it to speed up the process to pump out content more. Can we just chat about that? Do you guys have anything fun up your sleeve?
Yeah, I think for AI agents or for the models to really meet our customers where they are, they have to do a better job of representing their identity, their creative identity, and their voice. Today, most of the AI models that are being leveraged, be it Firefly or any of the other third-party models, are trained on the breadth of content that's out there. They're not necessarily trained on you or what it is that you're looking for as a creator. So the evolution that we are excited about at Adobe is to make it easier for creators to essentially train these models on their unique creative identity, their voice, and their creative work.
Yeah.
Right. And have that only be accessible to them.
Right.
It's if I have my own sort of model that's trained on me and my content, that would not be accessible to you, and vice versa. And that, in more ways than one, gives the creators the ability to create content that is true to their own brand. So that's the next evolution of what we're trying to do that I think is going to be super exciting. And the key there, I mean, you asked about Firefly a little earlier, is to make sure that we continue to do that in a way that's commercially safe, where you're not infringing on anyone else's IP, be it large IP, more IP, or your IP in the case of if I'm creating content. So the commercial safety component of Firefly is still true and is one that we're going to continue to lean into. But we're also now looking at ways to make it so that you can train these models based on your voice, your creative identity, and so on.
Yeah, something I've really enjoyed learning about over the years is Adobe's commitment to creative IP. And that's a huge topic right now in the creator economy with other models and how people use them, which, again, not to gas Adobe up, but guys, like, they've really got it on lock when it comes to creative IP, and that's fundamental. Almost every single person I talk to mentions it, and I think it's super important because even a use case, one time, just because I didn't know when I was messing around in Firefly, I put an Adobe stock image into Firefly and I said, use this as a reference image, but it doesn't let you do that. So I thought for a while, I was like, oh my God, why am I running into this roadblock? This is crazy. I need to fix this. What's going on? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, it makes total sense. I just need to actually think about Adobe's core value. So can we just talk a little bit more in depth about creator IP and building creator IP and how you see that evolving in the future as it pertains to, yes, using the products and building out your brand inside of the products, but even further and expansively across social platforms, in person, speaking, and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see us changing our stance on this front. At the end of the day, creator IP is an important sort of pillar that we have built Adobe around, and I don't see us shifting our stance on that front in the near future and the foreseeable future, for that matter.
Yeah.
It is important that we continue to have the trust of the creators that we have served very successfully over the years. And that is something that I think our creator community or creative community has come to expect from us. And we plan to continue to hold true to that.
Yeah, I love that. And another thing that I'm interested in as AI evolves, as you've experienced in your career, the .com era evolved. So we're kind of at this moment that's similar to that .com era, that's potentially similar to the horse and buggy era, right? If we really want to throw things in there. I'm just curious about what success during the .com era meant back then and what lessons you took with you that have carried you to this moment now and what you're going to be doing to inspire your team and the entire team working with you to be at the cutting edge.
Yeah, that's a great question. So during the .com era, my primary focus was Flash. I'm dating myself here, but I was responsible for Flash, and my job back then was to make it incredibly easy for everyone to create content for the web, right?
So can you explain what Flash is just for those of us who are either listening?
Not of my generation, and
maybe Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Millennial. I don't know. I've never heard of Flash before.
That's
shocking.
That is well. You mentioned .com era. So no, it isn't.
I think of AOL Instant Messenger, and Yahoo, and Bing. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, no. So Flash was this runtime that was essentially available across every browser in the world, and the idea was that anyone could create content and be confident that their content would run consistently on everyone's machine, regardless of which browser they used. So we were responsible. We took the responsibility of ensuring that content that was created by anyone would run seamlessly on every browser, on every machine across the world. And companies, most of the games back then, most of the ads that you would see on websites, YouTube for that matter, a number of companies leveraged Flash quite extensively to deliver content to users' machines.
Yeah.
It has obviously since transitioned to HTML, and the world has moved on, but that was sort of where we were, during the .com era. And in more ways than one, what we're trying to do now as it relates to democratizing content creation and making it incredibly easy for everyone to create content without having to go through the process of learning some of the creative professional tools is very similar, if you think about it, to where we were 25 years back during the Flash era. Flash was about making it so that companies can create content, or even individuals can create content that would run consistently on all browsers. Now it's about giving everyone the tools and capabilities to essentially create content to tell stories, because we strongly believe that everyone has a story to tell, and our job at Adobe is to empower everyone to create, right?
Yes, I love that point, which leads me to my next point, which is about how creators and creatives use creative tools to expand their business and what that means for like the long-term health of their business. Because everyone using the tool is using it for something different, right? You've got people that are doing it for small business purposes. You've got people that only use one tool in the suite. Maybe they don't know a thing about any of the other tools. So I'm curious, what does a person's depth of knowledge about the tools that they're using in their creative business tell you about their long-term success or the health of their business long-term?
So we obviously try to learn from how our users use our tools, because it gives us insights on the tools that are resonating with them, the tools that are not resonating with them, the tools that need to be simplified, the tools that need to be taken out potentially, the tools that need to be added. So we spend a lot of time just looking at the usage data to get a sense for which tools are being used and how they are being used. We don't look at their content, we just look at the usage data, to be very clear. To make sure that we are optimizing the tool based on usage patterns. But what we're also in the midst of doing is bringing in conversational interfaces and capabilities into the product, into all of our products, the breadth of our creative products. We had started with the conversational AI assistant in Express. We now recently launched it in Firefly, Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator. And the idea is that as a creative, you don't necessarily need to fully understand the tools. You can essentially converse with the application and have it produce the output that you're looking for it to produce. So yes, we continue to optimize tools because we're not taking away the ability to have that fine-grained control with the tools that you've grown up with, or that you're leveraging, or that you have leveraged in the past. But we're also now sort of abstracting that out and giving you the ability, if you so choose, to just converse with the application and get to your creative output without even opening a single tool.
Yeah.
If you still want to, you still have the ability, you have the control. We're not taking that away. It's just you have the optionality to literally get to your creative output with just conversational.
Something I just thought of that I've experienced at time, I think, because there's a learning curve when you're using prompting to design or create. which is the idea that sometimes prompting takes more time than just doing it yourself if you're traditionally trained. So I'm just wondering what your advice would be. I'm sure it's probably something along the lines of just like practice, but is there any shortcut? Is there any resources that people can go to really exercise that muscle, to really learn how to do it best?
The work that we are doing on our end to help people who struggle, because you're right. I mean, prompting is also a bit of a science, so to speak. It's you have to get the right prompt to get to to your desired output. We are essentially providing prompts, prompts or suggestions to the user based on their content. So we look at their content and try to introspect and understand their intent and make suggestions, prompt suggestions that I think go a long way towards making it easier for them to get to their desired output.
Right.
So that's a big step in the right direction. The other thing that we're also doing is contextually surfacing just some of the lightweight controls that they can use to make the fine-grained edits that they want to make. Like if you want to adjust the brightness, you can try saying, make it brighter, make it brighter. You can try saying that 10 times. Or we can surface a simple slider to just adjust the brightness of the image.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with the breadth of all the controls that you have to edit the image. You basically are just dealing with one slider to adjust the brightness, because you don't, otherwise you'll just be prompting forever to say, just increase it by 1%, another 2%. I mean, you'll never get it right.
Yeah. So on the note of prompting, I was definitely an early tester of the Adobe Express beta in ChatGPT. And you guys just had some big news recently about also integrating that into Claude. I know that there's sometimes a little bit of fear, I think, of not just using the AI in the tool itself, but then all of a sudden you stack them up on top of each other. But I actually think it's so smart, because if you can prompt something you're already using to be your writing partner, why would you not prompt it to be your design partner? Why would you not integrate with the best of the best? So can you also share a little bit more about that move and, not just why it's important, but how people can best explore, like, should somebody who's using Express for the first time go to Claude or ChatGPT's plugin and then just prompt the connector from there? Or should they go to Express and should they try the AI assistant?
That's a great question. I think you sort of have the option to choose your journey that works best for you. Now, as you rightly said, increasingly we are finding that users are already in these platforms. So we have integrations in ChatGPT. We launched one in Windows Copilot a couple of months back, and then most recently, just last week, we launched a set of connectors that are accessible from Claude. And as you said, the opportunity there is to sort of take the semantic understanding or the contextual understanding of what you have done in these chat platforms and leverage that to create content that surfaces in this chat platform itself. So you don't have to leave the chat platform to create the content that you're looking to create.
Right.
You then have the ability to once again go into Express and continue your journey there.
Yeah.
But if you just want to do it all right there, you have the ability to do it right there. But there are a large number of users who are looking for a creation optimized surface, who just feel like, okay, I want to be in that creation zone. So put me into Express. Let me start with a prompt there. Let me generate designs. Let me generate what I want to what I want to create. And then let me tweak my design there. That's fine too, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to meet users where they are. We're not forcing them to come to Express. We're not forcing them to stay in these chat platforms. We're giving them the option.
I really love that because having options is, I think, the thing that creators ask for most, right? It's not just that creators want a brand deal these days. It's that they want a speaking gig or a podcast opportunity or a hosting opportunity or a newsletter opportunity. And I do think it's the same when it comes to the tech stack that is in a creator's business. So you guys also work with a lot of enterprise clients. Have you noticed a difference in a one-on-one creator use case versus an enterprise use case when it comes to using AI, agentic AI, creative tools like Express?
Yeah, I think for the individual creators, it's more about just getting to their output as quickly as possible and then fine-tuning it based on their own creative voice, right, or creative identity. With enterprises, it's slightly different because you have this element of ensuring that your content stays on brand that comes into play. So what we have had to do is to enable these enterprises to use generative AI while staying on brand. Right now, we have capabilities like template locking, brand control, brand check, to essentially make it easier for everyone creating content in enterprises to stay on brand.
Yeah.
But what's been interesting for us now is to also bring in these generative AI capabilities and make it so that these models can generate content while staying on brand. And that has been quite, interesting to see how the results differ, how different creators and different scenarios and settings are using these tools and capabilities, and the difference in the output that comes out of these models.
Yeah, I was at Max last year, so I remember when you guys launched your NFL news over there. That was really exciting because it does give proof of concept that brands are wanting an entire mock-up creative suite on a cloud-based design editing tool that's super malleable to whoever's needs, whether that's a video clip maker, whether that's a podcast editor, whether that's a video timeline or making stories. So let's see what else we can get into. I'm just because I know we're like coming up on 10 minutes here. So what do you think one thing that creators are underestimating when it comes to their use of AI in their creative workflow?
I think it comes down to how they can incorporate their own voice into it. I feel like there are a large number of creators who are optimizing for speed and not leveraging the full strength of AI to actually help them stand out, right? Speed gives you time to market potentially, but does not give you the connection with the audience that you're looking for. But in reality, AI has the hooks, especially in tools like Firefly and Adobe Express. We have the tools and the capabilities to make it easy for creators to bring in their own voice, to bring in their own creative identity, as I mentioned. But I don't feel like it's being leveraged sufficiently enough. And I think that's that's something that I'm concerned about, because speed can only get you so far. I wish people would spend the time. In reality, what AI does is that it gives you the space, so to speak, right, to bring human judgment into the equation, to bring human perspective into the equation, because you're not scrambling to get things done. Like you get 80% of the work done fairly soon through AI. Then if you don't spend that time, I mean, you can literally get there in seconds with AI, right? Then why don't you spend the time that you have to essentially get that last 20%, or even it's the last 10%, the last mile editing done to make your content truly, truly speak to your brand, your identity, and ensure that it resonates with your audience.
So as we talked about before, with just jumping from the .com era now to the AI era, and potentially even the agentic era, and potentially whatever comes after that, what surprised you most about AI and how creatives have been using AI?
Obviously the most surprising element of it has been the speed of evolution, the speed of change. Like, it's just crazy. It's hard to keep up for almost anyone. But what it's done for the creative community and for creators at large is that it has dramatically lowered the barrier to entry for creativity.
And do you think that's a good thing?
I think that's a good thing because, as you probably know, Adobe's mission is to empower everyone to create.
Right.
And as I mentioned earlier, we strongly believe that everyone actually has a story to tell. But they struggle to tell their story because they don't have a medium to tell their story. Now with generative AI, the barrier to entry to telling their stories is dramatically lower. They actually don't have an excuse to not tell it and not make it visible to everyone. But what it has also done is that as consumers of content, our bar for what we consider as acceptable content, or content that we are ready to consume or willing to consume, has actually gone up.
Right.
So on the one hand, your barrier to creativity has been lowered, your bar to creativity has been lowered, but the bar to what all of us as consumers are willing to accept as good content has actually gone up. So we are in a very interesting sort of a phase of creativity where now we have more and more people creating.
Yeah.
But there still is enough of that gap, so to speak, between content that's considered to be good enough to content that's acceptable, that's ready for consumption, that creators who have that skill, who have that unique skill, still have the ability to stand out and differentiate themselves from everyone else.
Totally. I'm going to ask you a potentially personal question, which is, do you have any personal creative outputs that you use to inspire you in your role as a leader, as a creative, and as an innovator at the forefront?
So I don't consider myself a creative. I always said that I don't have a creative bone in me. I married someone who's very creative. My wife is an artist, both a dancer and a painter. So now that I have expressed in my tool chest, so to speak, I've actually tried to help her with some of her marketing campaigns. So some of the challenges that I was touching on, I can relate to very, very well because she is a solopreneur who's trying to build her business as an artist, but she's a traditional artist. She actually paints with paintbrush and she dances. So she is not savvy in a tool like Express. So it's been great to see how she's picked up Express, and she's actually quite savvy now. She wasn't initially, but I've also been helping her, and I'm actually blown away. For someone who does not consider himself creative, I'm actually blown away by the kind of content I can create in Express.
So you're not a doodler. You're not a let me just doodle on the page if I'm thinking kind of guy.
I'm not. I've actually, which is which is fascinating because I feel like I've built my career building tools for creatives. I mean, as I said, I built a 3D modeling tool like Flash, now Creative Cloud, now Express.
It's the operationalizing of a creative's mind, but you're building the tech for it.
That's right.
It's so fascinating. So just a quick couple of rapid fire questions for you. How can somebody become a great prompt wizard? How can they become the best at prompting?
I think trial and error.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Yeah, trial and error.
What's one creative thing that a creator or a brand could do this week that would set them light years ahead?
Adopt generative AI, but do it with the right mindset.
And when we're thinking about agentic AI, where would you suggest people learn about it?
Well, there are all kinds of tutorials on YouTube. We have obviously web pages on adobe.com, but I would start with either YouTube or adobe.com.
Yeah.
There's a ton of information out there. There are prompt experts who actually help you get started with prompts. There are suggestions and tools within the applications themselves that help you get started. I would just use them all.
And last but not least, I would assume that you might be in the same mindset that AI is just going to be a part of everyday life from now until probably forever, until the next thing comes out. So the last question I'm curious to ask is, how can people best set themselves up for success in the long term of building their creative business, their creator business, their business in corporate by using AI?
I would embrace AI for what it's worth, and look for ways to benefit from it without losing your creative self and creative touch or creative identity.
Yeah.
Right? AI does not replace your creative identity. AI does not replace your voice.
Yeah.
It does not replace you as an individual. Right? So I would encourage everyone to make the best of AI, but do everything you can to retain your identity, your voice, and your personality, and make it come to life in a much more visual and stronger way, using AI as a helper, not as a replacement for who you are or what you do.
All right. Well, Govind, thank you so much for joining Creator Etiquette. Can I ask you one last question?
Sure.
What is your last Creator Etiquette tip for the audience?
Be curious and take risks.
Amazing. I love it. Well, see you guys next time. Make sure you tune in for the next episode. Obviously, go check out Adobe. And I'm always collaborating with them. So you never know. If we're going to do a giveaway, maybe we'll throw in some free codes for some people. If you're exceptionally interested in listening to this entire interview and you've got to the end, maybe we'll have a surprise for you, maybe not. I don't know. But if you follow along, it might happen in the future. All right. Bye, guys. See you in the next one.